Premarital sex.
I am for purity.
I'm pro-abstinence and pro-marriage.
I believe that true love waits.
Premarital sex. Sorry, mommy.
Premarital sex. It's a very important thing, being sexually compatible with your partner. And how else you know that if you don't try it out, right? It's like a pair of jeans.
I prefer premarital sex.
Still abstinence.
Yes, abstinence.
Because sex is a sacred thing. It should be done with divine intervention.
I am an advocate of no sex before marriage. I'm 28 years old, and at the moment I'm in a relationship, and I'm still keeping my purity until the time that I get married.
Being practical, I would suggest premarital sex, honestly. I'm 34, and I think that when you have plans of getting married like if you have plans of getting married, one of the key things to make a marriage work is sexual compatibility.
I am Muslim by choice, 33 years old, and I'd say I'm pro-marriage. I advocate celibacy, and I'd rather girls, if they want to have sex, if they want to make love, find a suitable partner and get married. That's my stand.
I'm a really modern girl, and I've had premarital sex, but I've done it in the safe way as possible I could do. So it is really up to someone and the individual what they want to do with their own belief or what culture they're coming from. So you could do abstinence, that's your own preference. You could have premarital sex, that's your own preference.
There's a certain naivety with that. There's something perhaps is lacking in the education system. There's no sex education. For one thing, obviously, the Philippine church has a strong pressure on life as a whole for Filipinas. Procreation is very important, and contraception is very bad, and therefore most Filipinas don't know what's going to get them into trouble.
Do you think that sex education is good for our country, for our young people?
Yes, I believe we lack in that, as a matter of fact. I, for one, have experienced that during my high school. Sex education was part of our curriculum, and it helped a lot. Although, of course, there's always that kilig factor, when you talk about the mere word sex education. There's always, especially among high school girls, and it's an all-girls school. And ang kagandahan nun kasi we were given two aspects of it, two perspectives. One was the medical point of view, and the other one was the psychological, aspect of that. So it helped me a lot. Para mas may awareness, especially the young adults. I'm not saying that this should be introduced as young as, grade school children, no? But there's a certain age limit to that as well.
I think I was in grade 5, but it's all about just how babies are made. Very, very procreational approach, very Catholic approach. They never talked about STDs, they never talked about condoms, and because it's a Catholic school. So the reason why they touched on sex was basically to tell you how 9 months would go by with a baby inside your tummy. They never talked about anything other than the purpose of sex is to procreate. That's it.
There isn't such a thing as early, I think. Sex education is very necessary within the young Filipino community, both for guys and for girls. And I think it's very important to teach girls, particularly girls, about sex education and what causes pregnancy, what doesn't cause pregnancy, where is the line, what can you do, what can't you do. Because genuinely, most of them do not know. They really don't understand the mechanism of ovulation and procreation.
What's your take on premarital sex?
Premarital sex, as much as possible, I believe in the sanctity of sex. Sex being a part of the gift that we give to each other during marriage. So premarital sex to me is something which I would not condone.
Think before you leap. Most important thing is cause and effect. What's going to happen next? And if you do this, what will be the effect on you or your family? If you're with this guy and you get pregnant, what happens next? Think about it. Make rational decisions. Not easy when you're in love, but think about what happens next. Make sure what's the cause and what's the effect. Just think. Lovers leap, but think before you leap.
I think we Filipinas are some of the most confused and often misunderstood women around the world. We have the saying, 400 years in the convent and 50 years under Hollywood. Now that talks about how contradicting Filipino behaviors and values are. On one hand, we are taught to be traditional, we are taught to be conservative, mainhin, and modest. But on the other hand, our Western exposure has made us very, very, modern and liberal. The way we dress, the way we act. Sometimes you see examples of these contradicting behaviors, for example, in Philippine TV, where you will see actresses who are scantily clad, they're wearing very, tiny pieces of clothing, they're showing so much skin, and yet they will act in a very innocent, almost virginal way. So it doesn't really follow, On one hand, you're dressed in a very sexy way, but on the other hand, you're acting as if you're very modest and you're so mahinhin. Now that contradiction sometimes lands us into trouble when you look at the context of being in a country as conservative as the Middle East.
There's a thin line between being Western and being traditional Filipino, and we are in the middle, and we could compromise, and we don't mind compromising as long as, we can fit in.
I think the media is a very big influence on the Filipina today. Television shows in particular plays a very big influence on the masses. Because other than being a source of entertainment, it also becomes a source of information. So if you see sexy dancing and sexy gestures on on-time shows, people will think that it's an everyday, ordinary, normal thing. And young girls start wearing skimpy dresses and people start getting the wrong impressions.
Yes, I agree. The media is a mirror of the society, and your duty is to inform, educate, and play a constructive role for everyone, but sadly this is not always the case.
Parents become so used to seeing this on TV shows, on billboard. It's dictating the kind of norms that we're supposed to have in the society. That when their children are doing it, it's considered like normal to them, cute for that matter. As a matter of fact, there are some parents who even dress their children that way. This is the effect of the current media, the current exposure of these children especially. It's sad. This is the situation.
We have this belief that whatever we do in the Philippines, we think we can do anywhere in the world. And that's wrong. Now, if you've been here in the Middle East for a long time, you would have known that there are a lot of cultural differences that sometimes gets us Filipinas into trouble. And sometimes there are these small things. It could be as simple and it could be as small as the way we practice hygiene. Filipinas always smell good. We have our hair wet in the morning, we shampoo, and just because we are different from other people, we don't understand that can be seen again as a sexual come-on. So out here, you have to understand, you have to know about the culture, because ignorance is not an excuse. The other thing is that you read the newspapers and you listen to the news. And a lot of times you would see these stories about Filipinas getting sexually harassed or raped or falling into bad situations. Now, although we don't have the absolute statistics or numbers to tell you how high these incidents are, there is enough reason to think that, are we being singled out? Or sometimes you wonder, are we contributing to our own problems without really knowing it?
There's this thing about being Asian. The Asian market sells, especially in the Middle East. living in Dubai in a very cosmopolitan environment na may iba-ibang lahi na they would think na Filipinas, oh, they're hardworking, they're submissive, they're very open, and they're very social. Tapos, nami-misinterpret nila na we could be manipulated. Kasi most of us, medyo tahimik lang tayo. If na-offend, we just take it in. We don't say or do anything about it. So, parang, at this shallow level, they could just get away with it. And they're fine with it because they think we're fine because we don't do anything about it.
I am slightly aware of sexual harassment, not only in this country but other countries. But I seriously believe that what actions contributes in that harassment is our body language and how we present ourselves. I mean, you can come across to this very touchy person and people will be like, oh my gosh, she's really flirtatious.
With the way we move na napaka-feminine natin, napaka-sublime in a way that they could interpret it sexually.
It really is up to one person how she acts and how she brings up herself.
Do you have a Filipina friend here in Dubai?
Yeah, so many friend Filipino I have here in Dubai. Basically, customer of the taxi Filipino people and surviving people, the hard worker people here. When you want to go in the shopping center and the 5-star hotel and 7-star hotels, you'll be find these people first on the receptions. And all the fields you'll be find and Filipino people because this is the nice people. The government people like Filipino people, especially. You know, these Filipino peoples, and 100% maybe you'll be find 2%. I mean to say bad people. Bad people, you know, crazy, shouting and sometimes joking. So the 98% nice people here. So that's why we like the life of Filipinos. He's hard. These people hardworking. Also, they enjoying his life perfectly.
I think there are a lot of very good Filipina role models out there. If you look at the women who have come into prominence lately, there is, for example, Angelita Castro Kelly, who's a mission operations manager in NASA. She works like a Filipina diplomat, coordinating between scientists, between different nations to make sure that their operations, go well. Of course, there's the first Filipina Chief Justice of the California Supreme Court, that is Tani Cantil-Sacauye. And then, of course, there's the role model of all Filipina role models, Lea Salonga. Now, if you look at Lea Salonga, it's not only about her popularity or the way she has been sort of a cultural ambassador for the Philippines.
And wherever I go, I try to show the best of my country and its people.
If you look at her, again, she's grown up in such a business which is known for a lot of temptation, and yet Lea has been able to keep that self-respect with her, and that's why she's been able to succeed and, carry the flag of the Philippines everywhere she goes. We're very, very fortunate to belong to a sisterhood of strong women. Filipino women are very strong. They're making headway all around the world. You see Filipinas in government. You see Filipinas as head of businesses. You see Filipinas doing great things in the community and in society. Apart from being mothers, apart from being good sisters and, good daughters. But sometimes you wonder, despite the success, despite the strength of the Filipina, bakit marami pa rin tayong nagiging problema specifically related to things like unwanted pregnancy?
Teenage pregnancy is widespread in the Philippines, especially among the poor. In Manila, this contributes to rapid population growth and helps to perpetuate poverty in the city's crowded slums.
But that's a big problem in our country and within our community, although it's not exclusive to Filipinas, but sometimes you wonder, with all the success that we have, bakit meron pang ganon?